All right, I'm here with Gysgt Triebell, and we're conducting the first interview. Who are you, and what do you do?
All right, who am I? First off, let me say, absolute honor to connect with you. I appreciate you taking the time, and absolute honor. I'm humbled, man, to be here with you and be your first member of the interview. Came all over to Chicago, served together through 1-7, our time there. And it's humbling for me. So who am I? I'm Daniel Triebell, a gunnery sergeant in the United States Marine Corps. I'm also a strength coach for the Notre Dame men's rugby team. Been in the Marine Corps for this month will be 15 years. And what you see is what you get, man. I'm me. I come from humble beginnings. Come from, I don't want to say hard, I'll say challenging upbringing. But that's who I am.
Okay. Thank you. Growing up, you said you came from challenging beginnings. What characteristics or behaviors did the men in your life display to you? And what did your early conception of what it meant to be a man?
I think it's just providing and hard work.
Okay.
I watched my father work and work and work day in, day out. I even watched my mother work. When I would wake up for school in the morning, it's crazy you mention it because I just came from Florida, and we kind of went down memory lane and kind of, talked about how we went to school. And we lived probably a good 3 to 5 miles from my elementary school. And I talked to my mom while we went to go see, my elementary school, and then showed my daughter the elementary school where Dad, went to school and stuff like that, where we used to live. And I remember waking up in the morning for school and my mom was gone. Right, she was at work. Mm-hmm. She woke up probably 5:30 in the morning, had to be at work by 7. I had to be at school at, whatever time it was, 8:30, whatever time school started back then. And I used to ride my bike all the way to school by myself, right? I was young, school, yeah. Right? Like elementary school. And then I'd get out of school, and then I'd ride my bike back home. And my mom wouldn't come home till, 6:30, 7 o'clock sometimes, right? Because she was working.
Yeah. What'd your mom do?
She was a dental assistant.
Okay.
So, yeah, she worked in a dental field for well over 20 years. And she was a centerpiece of the office, right? She assisted the dentist. She did all the payroll and front office type work, kept records and stuff like that. So, and then my father worked for a grocery store, Winn-Dixie. Some of you are familiar with it if you're down south. But he just worked constantly. We never had much, right? We just had enough to get by, man, and they provided, right? So that's very important. My parents divorced at a young age. I don't even remember, probably 3 years old, maybe.
Okay.
And it wasn't, I'll say it wasn't a very supportive on both sides, right? They didn't really get along, so it was hard to, kind of be in the middle growing up. But, I just watched them pretty much hard work, man. Nothing's given to you. You had to work for everything that you have. And I think that's kind of made me be who I am, and success.
Very driven.
In the Marine Corps and outside the Marine Corps, right? Just the drive and the grind, and the saying that I have is you can't cheat the grind. I think you probably remember it. You just can't cheat the grind, man. It knows when you're not working. It knows when you're not putting in effort. That's one thing you can't cheat, man. You can cheat on a biology test or a math test, or you can cheat on yourself and not give everything you have. But the main thing is, man, you can't cheat the grind, man. It knows when you're not working. It knows when you're not putting 100% in. It knows when you're not giving effort. And the results of that grind is the ones who grind always see success. The ones who don't, you're probably gonna come up short. So I think work ethic and the grind really inspired me at a young age.
Thanks. What city did you grow up in?
So I grew up in Melbourne, Florida.
Melbourne?
Yeah, so it's just south of Orlando.
Okay. What drew you to want to join the Marines?
That's a good question. And every time this question comes about, it gives me memories of growing up. So I was a troubled young kid, man. I played sports from baseball, basketball. I probably played basketball since I could walk, man. Football. Wasn't into the wrestling thing, man. Lifted weights. I was always really active outside. But I don't want to say absent, but with my parents always working, I never had somebody there that really focused on the discipline aspect of growing up, right? There was that gap, and for a lot of it, I just fell into, I guess, the wrong crowd, and I was a real troubled kid, man. I remember, man, I stole pencils, man, from other kids, because, like I said, man, we didn't have, all the extra money to go to the school store to buy, the Christmas little presents and the school supplies and the book fairs and stuff like that. And so, growing up, I remember, I laugh about it now, but I stole Valentine's Day pencils. I was in elementary school, man. And I gave them out to all the girls, man, and I gave them out to I think I gave it to my aunt. And somehow I got caught. I can't remember how I got caught, man. And so, something petty like that, man, all the way up to, watching my cousin, who was more like a brother to me, fall into drugs and, selling drugs and doing drugs, and just being surrounded by that. I looked up to him a lot. And so obviously I fell into that. Lying about my whereabouts, man, or what I was doing, sneaking around, sneaking out of the house, doing X, Y, and Z. I was in the club at 15 years old, man.
Oh, wow.
Doing whatever I wanted to do, right? Because there was no one really there. I got free range to.
Yeah, no one was checking up.
Yeah, no one was really checking up on me, right?
Are you the oldest, or do you have any other siblings?
No, man. My cousin, who's like my brother, is older than me.
Okay, so it's just like you from your two parents,
yeah,
and you had your cousin that you were going around being your brother with.
Right. So, and then it's just the people that I surrounded myself with, really. And then I just fell into it, man. The gangs, just getting in trouble back then, man. I thought, this is cool, man. But
it was like not promoted, but that's where everyone was going.
That's what everybody was doing, man.
Yeah.
Right. And back then you could either be part of it, or now you could be on the outskirts and not be part of it, man, and be subject of getting beat up or whatever that came with, right? So it was like you either choose this side or you're on the outside fence, man.
Yeah, and then that makes sense. So when did you first interact with the Marines? Did a recruiter come to school, or?
Man, so I say that to say this, man. When I was in high school, I got kicked out of high school, and I got kicked out of high school for shooting deadly missiles into occupied vehicles. So there was a drive-by shooting, I'll call it, and I got kicked out of school. I got kicked out of school and went to what they call advanced. It was alternative learning school.
Okay,
so
yeah.
it was a school where everyone who got kicked out of school
went
to school, right? And I remember that school was a square, and you could only walk in one direction. and there was metal detector when you walked in. You got searched when you walk into school, man. So I got in a lot of trouble. And when I got kicked out of school, I got 2 second-degree felonies, but I was a minor. So obviously,
How old were you?
16, 17.
Okay.
And I really had no aspirations to go to college, man. I wanted to play sports, but school really wasn't me, man. I think of more so of who I surrounded myself with. None of them went to college, really. Half of them probably didn't even finish school, right? Everybody I grew up with, I say it all the time now, was either dead or locked up. So I was in a lot of trouble, man. I really didn't know what to do. And there was a teacher named Mr. James Brand. He taught history. And I remember him. He was a high school teacher, but I remember him when I was in middle school. He ran this after-school program, again, for bad kids. I think the program's called Choices. And it's an after-school program, and they kind of try to mentor you and guide you to become successful, and you have choices, so to say, right? You can go down the left path, the right path, it's up to you. And James Brand, he was a Marine, and he always talked about it. I don't remember it from middle school, but I do remember I got in a fight with another kid in Choices, and I threw a chair across the cafeteria, the lunchroom, and I threw it at the kid. What I missed, and I hit James Brand, the teacher. And I remember he grabbed me, and he threw me on the table. And the next time, my next encounter with James Brand is we had a history teacher. I forgot his name. He was also part of the football coaching staff. And he got fired, got relieved. I forgot what it was for. And I was one of them kids where if I had a class first thing in the morning, either one, I wasn't there, or two, I went to sleep. So I remember I put my head down. And I didn't even realize the teacher / coach was gone. He wasn't there. And he came in, James Brand came in, and he was calling a roll. And when he had the piece of paper and he came to my name, right, I just heard, oh, shit. I looked up, and I said the same thing. Shit. I just remember that this is the teacher that I threw a chair at, mistakenly. Yeah. And after that, man, he became a role model, man. And then I saw a Marine who he was good friends with, Travis Bowling, who was a recruiter at the time. And just the way that he carried himself alone, man, I was like, damn, that's really cool, man. And I saw the people I grew up with, my cousin, and everybody else just continuously get in trouble and continuously fall into, the way of the streets and, go to jail and not be successful, right? So I kind of leaned towards doing something I didn't know what. I just had to get out of town. I just had to get out of the situation, man. I had to remove myself from that environment. And I really didn't know what I wanted to do. And I've always kind of chose the hard route in life. I don't know why. And I remember thinking about the armed forces, right? Didn't know anything about any armed forces. It was never in my plan. It was never even thought of in my future. And there was a way for me to expunge my charges, and it was to serve 4 years honorably in the Marine Corps. And you want to talk about luck. I don't like to say luck, man. I just like to say that I created this so-called luck, man, by, how I carry myself and my mentality and, what I did. And I accepted. And I just thought, like, if I'm going to go into the armed forces, I'm going to go for the more challenging branch. So what I heard, the more challenging branch for the Marine Corps. Yeah, and I was like, let's do it. But I didn't have an option for MOS. I took the ASVAB.
Okay.
And it didn't matter what I scored in the ASVAB, man. Whatever the max score for the ASVAB, I could have scored it, and I still would have been offered one job, which is infantry. And when I went into it, I didn't know there was a difference, man. When you see the Marines on TV or the commercials, you see them running, the gunfire, or in the movies, they're always on the front lines, always in a firefight doing something. I had no clue the difference, man. I didn't know there was communications, supply, motor T, administrative. I didn't know there was different ranks or MOS the jobs. I just thought, oh, that's the Marines. All right, man, let's do it. And that's why I joined the Marine Corps. And I really only joined the Marine Corps 4 years, just to get my felony expunged, and I was going to go back to doing whatever I wanted to do. But here I am, man, 15 years this month later, man, still in it.
Yeah.
So, that's why I joined, man. It was a selfish reason why I joined. I don't have a good reason why I joined other than it was a selfish reason. Well, a lot of people got, because I want to serve my country, or because, my father was a Marine, I want to carry on his legacy, or they have multiple reasons why they did it. Yeah. Mine was a selfish reason, man. Just for me to get removed from my environment, and for two to, get my felonies expunged, man.
But you stayed in.
And I stayed in, man. But I tell you that the reasons why I re-enlist is much different than why I enlisted.
Yeah, that's fair. All right, yeah, perfect. Can you give me an overview of your career then? So, the first 4 into
I tell you, man, my first day of boot camp, man.
Yeah, let's hear about that.
So knowing how I came up, man, and knowing the environment and the situation that I was placed in, or that I placed myself in, I remember showing up to Yellow Footprints and watching the drill instructors get off the bus. And my first thought process was, man, I really messed this one up, man. Man, this is terrible. And I met my best friend that first night. And it's our first time meeting. And we just talked about this when I went to Florida. And we get, you probably remember, for receiving, before you get your drill instructors, did you go east or west?
I went West Coast.
West? Okay, it's real similar. So they get you off the bus, put you on the Yellow Footprints. Yeah. And then you go through your initial processing where you get your uniforms, you do all your paperwork, you do all your medical and dental and all that stuff, right? So they put you what it felt like for days. But being a drill instructor, now I know, it wasn't days, it probably just 4 hours or so. They put you in a big open squad bay, right? Just a big open room. Yeah. And they leave you, man. They don't come check up on you. The only time you see somebody is when they come drop off, food, the box chows, and then they leave, man. It's all right, man, I don't know. So all of us majority of us, I'll say, were asleep. At least myself and Brian were asleep, right? And we just got our gear issue. I don't even think we changed out of our civilian attire yet. I think everything was still in the sea bag, and he was probably about 2 rows behind me. Mm-hmm. And he was back about 2 rows behind me, and we were both laying on our sea bags, asleep. We were tired, man. And I didn't sleep before I went to MEPS. On the way to MEPS, when you stay that night, then you go to boot camp, ship the next day. I didn't sleep at all, man. I partied. The hotel was nuts. So I got driven by van up to Paris Island from, I think, Jacksonville, Florida, I think it was. So, it's a good probably
8 hours.
I'd probably say it was a good 5 hours, maybe.
Okay.
Maybe a little less, but I was tired, man. So I remember that we were sleeping, and some tall guy named Marshall stood up, right? And we're all in the same platoon now. We're already broken down our platoons. And he stands up and he goes, "Hey, all you wake up, I'm going to teach you how to march," right? And, I'm like, man, I don't have time for that. I'm going to sleep. And so Brian in the back, who I didn't know at the time, goes, "Man, sit out, man. No one wants to hear your mouth." And he said, "Shut up," or something. And Marshall up front said, "Why don't you make me shut up?" And Brian stood up, and I had no clue who this guy was, right? Brian stood up and was like, "Come on back and I will." So Marshall, tall fella, Brian, the tall guy, Starts walking back to him. And I'm just minding my own business. That don't have anything to do with me.
Yeah.
I don't care. Until I saw somebody else stand up in defense of Marshall. So I said, oh, it's not going to go down like this. So I stood up. And my first day of boot camp was Brian fighting Marshall and me fighting whoever the other kid was, who I can't remember, that was in defense for Marshall, right?
Yeah.
And I said, man, it's not going to go down like this. So here we go, man. I just, boom, hit him. Brian hit the other kid. And we looked at each other, didn't know who we were, man. We just like, hey, what's going on, bro? Good? And from that day, man, that's my best friend, man. Yeah. Going on 15 years, bro. We went to boot camp together. We became squad leaders together. We became, in boot camp, we were squad leaders together. We went to ITB together, infantry training battalion together. He went the 50-1 route, assaultman, and I went the 11 route. But we went to 1-3, our first duty station together. We were in the same company together, then we got split. But we did everything together, man. I mean, from the time we woke up to the time we went to sleep, man, we did everything together. In ITB, man, like, I paired with him through the whole time, man. We damn slept together in the same tent, man, like, stood fire watch together. We did everything together. I mean, we deployed together. So, yeah, man, that's how my career started. Yeah. And I never forget, man, it was probably about, as soon as we got our drill instructors, probably the first night, maybe the second, and my senior drill instructor had us all up front in a school circle on the front quarterdeck, and he said, who here thinks they made a mistake? And I'm the only one, man. I damn sure did, right? Ain't no way I need to be here. And it wasn't the yelling and screaming, and it wasn't the being told what to do. It was, I think a lot of it had to do was that I grew up really quick. You know, it's just because I've always hung around older people, and I grew up really quick. So, like, yeah, I was 18 years old at the time, but, like, I lived a life of a 25, 26-year-old, you know?
Yeah, you were in the club at 15.
Yeah, exactly, man. So, like, I didn't appreciate, I guess, getting told what to do, but that's part of it, right? And let me back up, through the processing part, when we're getting our uniforms, man, I remember I walked past the drill instructor, and I guess I didn't say anything. You know, I have to get a proper end of the day. I guess I didn't say anything. And he called me a bitch, right? It was like, bitch, say something, or something to that effect, right? Well, I know he can't be talking to me, right? So I just kept on walking. And here we are trying our boots on, right? And boom, I feel somebody put me from the back, right? And I get up, and I'm squaring up, like, what we doing? And there was one drill instructor, I can't remember his name, man. He grabbed me and pulled me around the corner. He goes, I can tell you're from somewhere different than a lot of these other kids. Let me talk some knowledge to you. And he gave me some advice, man. He said, yes, sir. No, sir. I, sir. Scream as loud as you can and be as fast as you can. That's all you need to know. And I was like, sounds easy enough. But yeah, so when my senior drill instructor asked me, or asked all of us, who made a mistake, I was the sole hand being raised, man. I made a mistake, man. I don't need to be here. And he brought me in the office, man. He talked to me. He said, why do you think you made a mistake? And I kind of spoke a little bit to it. And he was like, all right. He goes, how about this, man? How about you give me to the end of the week? And if you still feel the same way, man, we can talk about it. And then we'll just process you up for failure to adapt. And I was like, I can make that deal. Easy. Right? And I think he knew that I came from a different background, man. And the only reason I say that is because it was like the first physical training session. And, you know, back in the very beginning, you're separated in your platoon by last name. Yeah. So Triebell with a T, I'm in the back. And these drones didn't know me from anybody, right? They didn't know anybody at the time, right? There for, you know, they probably know you for 24, 48 hours. They don't know anybody. And I remember standing in the back. And all I heard was, hey, where's that one kid from Florida? And then, there's probably many people that are from Florida. Mm-hmm. I'm standing in the back at attention, and I hear my senior drill instructor and the heavy are going over the roster, man. And they're going down, saying, boom, Triebell, that's him. I hear, Triebell. And I run up, boom, yes, sir. And he looked at the third squad leader, and he said, fire. He looked at me, he goes, higher, third squad leader. And I was like, oh, man. Like, all right, man, let's do it. And then sure enough, here comes Brian, my best friend that we got to fight. Boom. He's the fourth squad leader, I think. So, like, him and I together, man, if I didn't have him, man, I may not have made it, man. I might have said, man, forget this, man. I'm going back home. Or if it wasn't for my drill instructors believing in me and put me in that position. So I graduated, meritoriously promoted at a boot camp. Then went to ITB. And ITB was interesting to me, man. And again, I had my first face of adversity in ITB. And that's when I got NJP'd, man, in the PFC and ITB. Yeah. I chose the 0311 route because the machine gunners was interesting to me. Being in 51 really I wanted to be somewhere into action, man. I wanted to be someone who was, if I'm going to do this, man, I'm going all the way, man. I want to be the guys you see on TV or the commercials, like kicking in the doors, going through, clearing out rooms, clearing out buildings. And I just saw that the weapons MOS is, so 41s, 51s, 31s, were kind of farther back, right? And I want to be the guy at the breach, man. I want to be the guy at the, I guess, point of friction, man. I want to be that guy.
You choose the harder route anyways.
So I was like, I'm going to go with 11s, man. So I went. And, I did fairly well in ITB, man. To the point where the instructors were like, I need you to, whatever you're doing, man, you need to share it with the rest of these cats, man, because, but to me, man, I wasn't doing anything that...
It was just,
It was normal to me, man. The Marine Corps became easy to me, man, because I know what it's like to go back to something you have nothing, man. I know what it's like. So, this is my chance and my opportunity. And I kind of think that resonated with me fairly early in my career, man. My brother and cousin was sentenced to 10 years in prison, and I'm like, well, I mean, it's out of this, man. This is what I'm going to do.
All in.
Yeah, I'm all in, man. And I gave everything I got, man, and I became very successful. But a lot of it had to do with great leaders. But I remember towards the end of ITB, we were at the armory cleaning weapons. And just like everywhere you go in the Marine Corps, man, it works in cliques, man. Again, man, it didn't change, from back then when I was growing up, cliques and gangs and stuff, man. You had that in the Marine Corps, too. So it was me, my boy Mercedes, Rudy Falston, and a couple others, man. We were tight, man. Brian was with the 51 guys, but we were all at the armory together cleaning weapons.
Was this ITB?
ITB, yeah. And, I can't remember what started the argument or whatever it was, but I remember it was cold. But someone was like, let's go to the bathroom and let's settle it. So, me, I've been waiting for this. So I go to the bathroom. And when Brian heard that T was in the bathroom, fighting, and it was me, Mercedes, Rudy Falston fighting, I think it was us three fighting 5 or 6 of them, man. I don't know. It was to the point where when Brian walked in, this is a story from he told me. I don't really remember all of it. But when he said he opened the door, because the instructors were coming, right? He heard the instructors coming, he's like, well, let me go get my brother. So he said when he walked in the door, I had somebody, I don't know who, man, up against the wall, choking him with one hand. And then I was hitting, boom, boom, another kid with my left hand. And he grabbed me, right? He grabbed me, and like brought me to a cleaning table and was like, just clean a weapon. And I was like, all right, man. So I started cleaning a weapon. So he thought he was, he saved it, man. Because all the other kids got caught, right? They might get in trouble. So I know I'm saved, right? Well, somehow they probably told, Triebell was one of them or whatever, right? So I remember I was cleaning weapons, and one of the instructors come up and he was like, come here. I come out there and he was like, were you in the head reading about? Nah, it wasn't me. And that's the wrong answer, man. They already knew that. They already knew that, man. They know, man. So I got taken from the armory back to the squad bay, and my platoon sergeant, who was a staff sergeant, man, he was about that life, man. I don't know where he came from. I don't know anything about him. I don't remember his name. All I remember is that here I am in the office of the company commander, and my platoon sergeant standing on the left side of him. And when I came to this platoon, there was already I already had, I don't want to say a rap sheet, man, but they already knew, man.
Yeah, they already knew who you were.
They already knew who I was, man. They accepted me because I had that edge, that aggression, that that work ethic, that passion. But they also knew that I was a lot of trouble, man. Like I fought a lot. I didn't always get along with people. So they told me in the beginning when I went to that platoon, because if you remember, ITB was split up, 1st platoon, 2nd platoon, 3rd platoon, 4th platoon. At the halfway point, it split up into weapons. Yeah. Well, I was 4th platoon who turned into weapons. So then it was like a draft pick for 1st, 2nd, and 3rd, who they wanted from weapons. And I don't know what platoon it was, man. They picked me, man. And I'm glad they did, man. The instructors were awesome. And they told me, they were like, I got one rule, man. No fighting, bro. Like, that fighting stuff is dumb, man. We're here to grind, we're here to train. All right, cool, man. I don't like fighting anyways, whatever. So here I am fighting, man. And the staff sergeant was like, what did I tell you about fighting? And I was like, don't fight, staff sergeant. He was like, you want to fight somebody? And he, boom, took off his rank, bro. And he was like, you want to fight somebody? Fight me. And at the time, I'm like, I'm about it, man, but I don't know.
I know this is a bad idea.
Yeah, it's probably a bad idea, man. It's probably a setup, man. I don't know. And I was like, no, Stats, I don't want to fight nobody. No, apparently you want to fight somebody, so fight me. I ain't got no rank on. I'm a private. I'm a private. You're a PSC, so fight me. And I'm like, no, Stats, no. He's like, I'm not a Stats no more. I took my rank off. And I'm like, I don't think that's how it works. But, man, I went through the whole NJP process, man. Reading my rights, man. Thinking I was getting dropped. Thinking I was, getting kicked out, man. And next thing you know, man, I graduated. And I was like, man, I thought I was being dropped, man.
So they NJP'd you, but you still graduated?
They NJP'd me.
For fighting?
For fighting. But I never really got NJP'd.
Just like paperwork?
It was paperwork that never got submitted.
Oh, shit.
So I got NJP.
It was a scare tactic.
It was a scare tactic, right? But I was like, I went probably 5-6 years thinking I've been NJP before. And I did. No, it probably less than that, man. Because there's more stories coming, man.
Yeah.
Probably less than that, man. Where I thought I got NJP twice, but I really only get NJP once, but that wasn't the one time, it was a different time. And I was like, man, that's weird. There's nothing in my record. And I don't see anything. I'm like, oh, man, I'm not going to mention it, man. So I graduated, man. I got my first assignment, the 1st Battalion, 3rd Marines out there in Hawaii. Never been to Hawaii, man, but at the time, Hawaii 1-3 was the most consecutive deployed unit in the Marine Corps. It was, if you remember, man, we did an 18-month workup, 7-month deployment, right? 1-3 was doing, at the time, back in 2008, 9, 10, 11, they were doing 6-month workup, 6-month deployment. 6-month workup, 6-month, I mean, it was back to back. Yeah. So when we got to 1-3, man, my unit, 1-3 was still deployed to Iraq. They were one of the last units to be operating really in Iraq. And they came back. And then I met 2 of my greatest mentors, man. One is Sergeant Major Ken Davis. He actually went to high school with my dad, who I didn't know at the time. He was a Sergeant Major. He came out to Hawaii for something. We met up. And, man, if I would have listened to him, man, I would have been probably much farther than I am right now. I'm still good where I'm at, man, but I would have been much farther, man. But, you know, at the time, Lance Corporal Triebell knew all, man. He told me about all these tattoos, you know, don't do it, and here I am. I'm a sergeant major, man. I got it. Don't get the tattoos.
He was a sergeant major when you met him?
He was a sergeant major when I met him. And he, man, he's my lifeline, man. If you hold down one on my phone, it's speed dial, man. You call his phone. And then I met, at the time, was Staff Sergeant Mike Brown. He was my first platoon commander. And I watched.
Platoon commander or platoon sergeant?
He was a platoon commander. And I was a designated marksman for the security team for the battalion commander, battalion sergeant major. And he hand selected me, man. We had to go through this interview process, man. He saw me and he interviewed me, and he was like, "I want you." Again, I don't know why. I can't tell you why they believe in me or they saw something or potential or whatever it was, right? He was like, "I don't know what it is, man, but I want you." And he goes, "I want you to come be my designated marksman." So, here I am. So he was my platoon commander as a staff sergeant, but got promoted to gunnery sergeant right before he went to training. And then after being a designated marksman for the battalion commander, battalion sergeant major, and the whole command team, really. I mean, he took me under his wing, man, and just taught me so much, man. I tell you right now, man, I would not be here where I am in the Marine Corps without those two. Without a lot of people, man, but specifically those two, man. Everything that Mike Brown did, man, I just try to emulate, man. I saw him, man, I was like, that's what I want to be. That is who I want to be right there, man. And when we came back, I went to Afghanistan, did the push through Marja, came back, went to infantry squad leader's course, and then I went to Alpha Company to be a squad leader. And that's where I met my first toxic leader. It was my platoon sergeant. He's out now, man. If he was still there, man, I still say his name, man. Mike Hope, man. He was horrible, man. It's a toxic leader, man.
Why? What did he do?
He was all about himself, man. Didn't care about anybody else, man. He was all about himself. I was either one of few or one of one Lance Corporal squad leaders in the whole battalion. So, like, you remember your time in 1-7 in the Animal Company, like, they were all sergeants.
Yeah.
You know?
Corporals, yeah.
I was a Lance Corporal squad leader, man. And back then, bro, we had squad leaders. We were squad-sized PBs in the middle of Afghanistan. Jeez. And they were, 5 to 10 clicks apart, PBs. And so here I was, a Lance Corporal who had my own patrol base in charge of, 12 other Marines. And I say it to this day, my squad, I say my squad, but, my squad was the best squad in the whole platoon, man. And I think anybody could tell you that, man. If they remember Lance Corporal Triebell, Lance Corporal Jeffers, Lance Corporal Travis Clark, I think we had the best squad, hands down, to the point where the evaluators at ITX were like, "Oh, this is the best squad right here." And Mike Holt didn't want to believe, he's a Lance Corporal squad leader. They tried to break us, man. They tried, man. I never forget, we went to PTA, Popular Training Area, for 3 weeks, man. And if you reach out to anybody on my squad, man, back then, they'll tell you, man, we got slayed, bro. While other platoons were doing 6 hours in LPOP, 6 hours rest, 6 hours security, 6 hours VCP, 6 hours rest, 6 hours of patrol, bro, it was 6 hours LPOP in the freezing cold. They put me on like the midnight to 06 shift, straight into a 06 patrol attack on the town, straight into 6 hours of security after that. Then we got it's supposed to be 6 hours rest, but it got broken down like to 2 hours because we had to move. Like, we got slayed, man.
What course was this, or what?
It was Popular Training Area. So PTAs were similar to Big Bear, where we went for Patrol X, and then similar to Bridgeport. It's a service level exercise for units in Hawaii. Okay. It's on the Big Island, so Army base. And we got slayed, man. But man, shout out to my squad, man. They made me look really good, I guess, man. I don't know, but man, we killed it, bro. Yeah. And I tell you, man, without that squad, man, without, you know, Jeffers and Clark and Carter, man, we dominated, bro. To, you know, get evaluated at ITX, man, they were like, "Oh, this your best squad right here." I was a Lance Corporal, bro. Like,
I'm just
we were all Lance Corporals, man.
Yeah.
And the other squad had corporals and sergeants. And you know, so yeah, and then after that, I did another deployment to Afghanistan. So that was 2 cross deck, there was 3 to Afghanistan. And then I just wanted to be a drone